Matt gave you a very kind outline there in terms of what is happening around Archie Gray. So let's bring you the news in regards to where we are in relation to the player himself. So we understand Spurs are working on a move to sign Archie Gray from Leeds United after they turned down an offer for him from Brentford. Discussions, as we understand, are continuing, and there is an expectation on all sides that a deal can be struck, although at present nothing has been finalised. Matty, of course, made that point that at the moment, the player is in early stages with Tottenham. He underwent a medical with Brentford on the Saturday, and after agreeing personal terms, we understand he has since had a change of heart and is now leaning towards Spurs if he does depart Leeds United. Spurs were among a host of suitors from the Premier League and across Europe pursuing the 18-year-old midfielder. And the North London club, we understand, have explored the player for many, many months. It looked at one point, of course, as we mentioned, on the Saturday, Brentford manoeuvred themselves into a situation where they were the strongest positional team to win the race. However, Spurs are back in the race for Archie Gray, and we understand they are closing in on the 18-year-old signature. There's a long-held admiration for the player, a firm interest in a player that has already, to some degree, as an under-21 player, shone and showed that he's got a really bright future ahead of him. So we'll be discussing the aspects of that. Matty, first feelings for you. Does this player improve Tottenham Hotspur as a squad, as a first team? Overall feeling for you on the player himself, and we'll come on to his background.
Yeah, I absolutely do think he does improve not just the Tottenham of now, but the Tottenham of the future, and that's what's being built by Ange Postecoglou. When you're looking at the signings, and not just Postecoglou, but with Johan Lang up in the recruitment and all that department that we discussed in depth with Ben Jacobs on Thursday. Gray is a player who I think really fits the mould that Ange Postecoglou wants, both on and off the pitch. And I think the off the pitch at first is a very interesting conversation to have, because we know how important that is to Postecoglou. We know how he loves a player who just has the right mentality, and he likes a harmonious dressing room.
And as we said, just to go through some of those stats there on Archie Gray in a Leeds United shirt, he played 47 games for Leeds last season, created 18 chances, 1,735 passes. And I think at the moment, like I say, with the goals element to it, he did end up getting a couple of goals for Leeds, I have to say. A couple of assists in there, tackles 97 and fouls overall 24. He actually did, can I just say on the goal, score an absolutely vital goal, Matty, on their route to, well, trying to get up in terms of the promotion battle. And again, Matt, can you understand those two sides of the coin when it comes to some fans that would like, ideally, the second signing to be more of a proven signing, given the fact that Timo Werner, I think, as we all know, did really cause some diversion amongst the Spurs fan base?
Yeah, I can definitely understand wanting to get those more kind of experienced and proven players in first, but I would also say I think Tottenham's hand has been forced here. I mean, we didn't move to really get anything done until it looked like he was on his way to Brentford. You know, it's completely possible that we were hoping to get a few others over the line and then see at the end of the window if this was possible, or see what the details of a deal would be if we then wanted to move. But ultimately, this is a player that we've been looking at for a very long time, that a lot of top clubs, not just in the Premier League, have been looking at for a very long time. And it looked like we could miss out on him. And it's, I think, very comparable to not only the Antonio Nusa deal, like I mentioned earlier, but also Alex Scott and that move that he made to Bournemouth. And I think that's one that we may look back on already with an element of regret. And we just didn't want to have that with this as well. And
what I do want to ask you, Matt, about the player is that the player has operated in a couple of different positions in general. And for those out there that don't really know much about Archie Gray, I think it's really good to bring this into focus that the player itself excelled in a role in Daniel Farke's team last season with the ability to play as a right back, which would definitely suit Ange Postecoglou to the ground. We know Spurs do genuinely lack a natural replacement for Pedro Porro, with Emerson Royale, who we understand to be closing in on a move to AC Milan, and with no disrespect to him, unfortunately not possessing the qualities to come inside and play from those central areas. And the key thing about Archie Gray, I think, is really worth coming into focus here, is that it's a midfielder by trade, although he's shown at right back last season. I think many would look to mark him out as a perfect inverted fullback for Ange next season. And again, to put this into focus, the teenager's form last season was one of the reasons why Jed Spence was unable to claim that right-back spot in that Leeds United side in the first half of the season, which then led, of course, to the player returning to the football club and loaned out again to Genoa. So before we come on to the homegrown element, Matt, on him, how important is the position that he plays to be maybe key to why Spurs want to get this deal done?
Yeah, I imagine it's absolutely crucial. Not only because he he does seem to be well molded to that inverted fullback position that the Postecoglou likes. It's something he did a little bit at Leeds last season, not particularly a lot, but it's something he did a little bit. And the fact that he can also play in midfield. And to look at the last season, he made 44 appearances there, as you said. 30 of these were in right back, 10 of them in defensive mid, 3 in centre mid, and 2 a little bit further forward in attacking mid. And like you do get players every now and then who have that versatility. Like, you know, James Milner's the brilliant example that the people like to use. For us last season, to some extent, it was Oliver Skipp. But at such a young age to so effortlessly slot into different positions, like you said there, he's naturally a midfielder who played the majority of the season at right back, and he was only forced in there by the injuries that they had in the squad. And it goes to show just how adaptable he is to be able to make that position his own, but also how good he must have been for Daniel Farke to have that trust in him, to put him in such a crucial position in a season where Leeds were vying for promotion and where anything other than promotion was going to be seen as a failure.
Now, look, another element to why Spurs want to get this deal done is around the element of the homegrown quota, which I know, again, strong emphasis on that. Friend of the show, dear friend of mine, John Lily White-Rose, is one that I know keeps a very careful eye in regards to what that impact does mean for Spurs in and around that element of it. And again, just to bring that into focus, John tweeted earlier today, and I hope John won't mind me sharing this, that Archie Gray, as he understands, would count as both homegrown and club trained by the time he was 21. So not 19 until the 12th of March. So 3 seasons would be the 24-25 season, where again he'd fall into that 18 to 19 years category, 25 to 26 where he'd fall into that 19 to 20 years category, and 26-27 season where he'd fall into that 20-21 years, of course, in those categories. I mean, Matt, just to come over to you, I know it's an element that you also keep an eye on when it comes to the obviously proposal around homegrown. Just how important is that, Matt, that Spurs are very much cautious around the homegrown quota? Maybe if you don't mind expanding a little bit, how that does impact Spurs as a club and generally football clubs by the homegrown quota.
Yeah, it is a very tricky one to navigate, and I feel like the rules change ever so slightly every couple of years. It is also worth mentioning the Premier League, the domestic rules are a little bit different to the European rules, so there can be a little bit of a struggle there. I wasn't aware that Gray would count as club trained when he gets to the 3-year mark. I would assume then that Lucas Bergvall and Lwosxic would fit into that category as well, which maybe again goes to show the benefit of buying players who are a little bit younger. Now, obviously, Bergvall and Voskovich wouldn't fall into the homegrown quota, but it's just something that's a little bit tricky to navigate, but you have to do. And we've seen it over the last couple of years. I can't remember if it's happened with Tottenham, but with other European clubs where they've had to leave big players out of their squad. Maybe I'd say a role maybe similar to Martial at Manchester United, where he's not going to be a starter all the time, but he's still a player that's in that first team sometimes who has a lot of quality, but just you can't find the room for him in that. But again, it does seem to be something that Tottenham are actively trying to resolve, and but it's something that we do seem to be trying to get back on top of. And it's not something I want to be the reason behind the signing. I don't want to sign Archie Gray because he's homegrown. I don't want to sign a Bergvall because he can become club trained, but it is something that you have to navigate and something that you just have to be a little bit aware of. Yeah,
that's absolutely fair. Look, finally, Matt, I want to just cover him off tactically before we look at what else is happening on this PSR deadline, how things may affect Spurs going into those final, I can probably say, minutes, I can say, of that PSR deadline. The clock is ticking fast. I feel like we're on another deadline day special here, Matt. It doesn't stop on last one on Spurs with bloody deadlines. I'll tell you, bloody deadlines. So we're relying on those deadlines. Tactically as a player, I think it's important.